You're very welcome back. And in this video, I'm going to talk about building a repeatable process and its importance. At the core of this, I'd say process is the only variable that's improvable, reliable, and pressure resistant. Everything else is noise. An example I'll give you is in the Welsh International Open last October, November. A jury member, we have jury people who watch you while you're shooting to make sure all the rules are being followed. They had to come over and touch my shoulder and tell me I was finished shooting. I was so far into my process, I allowed nothing in there, and I had to be told to stop. In shooting, we talk about there's no shot before, there's no shot after, there's only the shot you're in, and we don't count numbers. At least that's what everyone says. Well, that example right there told you how far I was into the process, and that's how far everyone should be into a process. The standard I'm looking at here is the bullseye we shoot at is 0.5 millimeters. A perfect shot is 10.9. That's at the center of that half a millimeter. There are 10 concentric circles within that half a millimeter, and I'm required to shoot 10.5 above to qualify. And it's 60 shots in 1 hour 15, and it's 10 meters from that half a millimeter bullseye. So if you want to do it, count out 10 meters, put a ballpoint pen 10 meters away from you and see if you can see the top of it, because that's the size of it. This, by the way, for anyone who doesn't understand, this is the very same system as the able body. Just because I'm a Paralympic athlete, it just means I do it from the seated position in a wheelchair instead of standing. Same competition. I do it in a wheelchair. I've got one working arm, so I get a spring to support it, but it's the same distance, the same target, and the same standard. By the way, it's not about disability. It's the very same shot, the very same sport, same distance, same standards. I just do it from a wheelchair. And what I'm trying to address is, how do you hit that target reliably under pressure in a competition when everything around you is designed to make you miss? The noise, the shouting, the interruptions, everything is there to get in your way. So how do you do that repeatedly? I say it's the process. It's void of emotion. There's no positives, there's no negatives, there's only execution. Similar to the processes behind software development, the process of project management, all these different processes. Processes don't get happy or sad, they get executed. But they have to be executed from the beginning to the end before they're discussed. They cannot be discussed during. If you're not careful, emotion falls in, specifically in shooting. You end up with a good shot or a bad shot, whatever that means. And now you're starting to think, and that's not what should be done. That's what destroys repeatable performance. It's not the pressure itself, it's how we react to it. Think about being in team meetings where I'll give an example, you're delivering a website, okay? If it's not being executed and the focus is not on the execution, and the discussions around the process are based on the execution, based on the delivery, you end up with emotions. People start getting, oh, this didn't work right, that didn't work right. Remove the emotion and discuss the problem at hand with a focus on delivering. That's the way I shoot shots. Both directions, by the way, in shooting are bad. They're dangerous. Let's talk about the bad shots. You start asking yourself questions. You're getting into your head. What happened? What went right? What didn't go right? You start experimenting. Oh, I'll try this. Oh, I'll try that. Within the process, really not a good thing to do. You need to be executing a process, not analyzing the process. Now, let's get on to the good shots. Suddenly, expectation builds. There's a bit of pressure. You know, I've got 3 good shots. Suddenly it's like, oh, what is everyone watching me? Now you are no longer executing your process. Now you're wondering how everybody is viewing you. Similar to projects. How are we being viewed externally? It's irrelevant. Let's get the process completed. Then we get to think about it. There's room for thinking between shots, but definitely not within the shot because the process is within the shot. Adrenaline starts running on good shots. Feel the right arm tightening a little bit. In the early days, that was something I struggled with. And then I worked on a process that removes that. So I'm not as, it's not to say that those factors don't come in, but I deal with them in a different way. And it's primarily, by the way, focusing on the process, similar to being tipped on the shoulder in Wales to say you're finished. I was so far into the process, I wasn't able to analyze, I wasn't able to react, I wasn't allowing emotion in because I was so happy just doing what I do, which is execute the process. Think about golfers. Most people understand golfing, or most people will have had an experience of golfing. Guy puts in 2 great days, and then day 3 crumbles. Or here's the thing, 3 great days, leading by 6 shots, going into day 4, back 9 crumbles, ends up 3 over. Why is that? Because the same process, remember, golfers are in loads of ways no different than shooters, except they get a second chance and shoot, you don't. But think about it. They have every shot in the bag. Every shot. They train endlessly to recover from different positions. So what is it that blows up? It's not their technique. Their technique, they've been honing that. It gave them 3 solid days. Why on day 4? So what I believe is happening is the head. And in shooting, you hit a couple of good ones, and suddenly, well, there's an expectation built in if you allow yourself review the data in a way that is a good or a bad. For me, data is data. In projects, suddenly people get ahead of themselves. They don't follow the same structure, we'll say, in delivering. And suddenly it slips a bit, and people are wondering, oh, something happened there. What happened? How did that happen? Well, it's because the little demon on the right shoulder started going, you're on this, you've got this done, this is great, you've done this before, it worked last time, but we've deviated from execution and now we're into analyzing and we're into nearly free flow. I got it right last time, I'll get it right this time. Not a good place to be. Me, I look at processes like code, love code. Why? Code doesn't disappoint, it delivers. That'll sound mad, but if you think about it, and I'm thinking here right now, 100 lines of code, that's lovely. Why? You put it in the top end, the variables are filled, they come out the bottom end. Computer never decides to change your code on you. Mid-process, consistent input, produce consistent outputs. Now that's exciting. It doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel bad, it just executes. This might sound mad again, but this is pretty much how I shoot. This is how I deliver projects. IT project. I'm giggling here because I'm looking back at projects that were delivered, and this is like reading from a manual I created. Pressure doesn't change the logic of the code. It'll create a backlog, by the way, which is a really good one. You know, when the cursor is spinning on the screen in front of you, that's really good. That's just, it's taking time to deliver an output. But it's not suddenly going, I'll actually take a shortcut here to get, it doesn't care about how much you put on. Now you resource effectively. That's the reality of it. My process in shooting, pressure doesn't affect it. It executes in the same way every time. That's the whole focus. Pressure only reveals whether the code was ever truly built. That's the reality of it. Because if it breaks, you didn't create that code properly. It shouldn't be affected. My process shouldn't be affected. The outcome shouldn't be affected if the process is structured properly. In Wales, took my process on the road. Personal best, silver medal. 60 shots, 1 hour 15 minutes. There's no awareness of the score, the position I was sitting at, the crowd behind. It's irrelevant to me because I am in the process execution mode. There is no room for anything else. There's just the target, there's the rifle, and there's the process. And that rifle will only do what I tell it to do. So it doesn't suddenly go, I'm going to go and shoot high or low or left or right here. It follows the process that I give it. And how I know it worked so well, the jury member had to physically touch me on the shoulder and say, "You're finished." That was probably not score related. That was probably the happiest experience of the process I've ever had. Not because of the medal. Medals, by the way, are products of delivery. You know, at that point in time, silver was perfect for what I was doing. But I didn't even know that I'd won a silver medal until I came back to the assembly area for putting my rifle away. And I was asked, did I mind if the medal ceremony was brought forward? And my reality was, I looked up and I said, yeah, sure, there's no issue there. And I said, why? And she said, because you'll be coming out first, you're getting silver. And I thought, oh, okay. Now, the excitement for me wasn't in the medal, by the way, because I actually thought I executed my process so well. But here's a very important thing. I didn't exceed anything in the competition that I hadn't already reached in my training. And that's an effective measurement tool as well. When I look at that, I go, I train for competition every day. When I get to competition, I execute based on the training I've done every day. I don't suddenly get better. I get to the same level. So the focus, the intensity of my process that I deliver every day, 3 times a day, we'll say, that's reflected in the outcome when you go to a competition. And how do I know the process worked? Because it didn't collapse when the pressure of the big competition came on. That to me was where the process stood its ground. I was taught not to count. Why? Because numbers have an effect on you. When you start working on good numbers and bad numbers, 10.9, suddenly everyone goes, yes, I'm in there. A 9.9, oh, I'm gone way out. If I stay in the process and I don't use numbers, other than a piece of data to tell me the shot was high or low, left or right, there's nothing to get excited about. Do you think a computer gets excited about numbers? It's following a process. That might sound a bit weird, but that's actually where I get the fun out of. I process things a little bit like a computer. There is no excitement, but there's a satisfaction on executing the process effectively. Coaches would have said to me, oh, you know, you were at 102, you should probably have done dry firing. My answer was, how would I know I was at 102? And you get the silence back and you realize you've actually attained a certain level of mastery within your process, within your sport. And if you bring that into the business environment, how do you get excited about executing a process? How do you get disappointed when an element of it actually fails? And failure, I'll talk about that in a future video. Failure is not as bad as everyone thinks. You learn more through failure than you do from success, with one caveat. You get to fail once, you get to make a mistake once. After that, it's a choice. That's actually how I believe things should be as well. 2 questions that should be asked are, what is the standard your performance actually requires? Not when you can manage, not what feels acceptable, what the remote role demands. I'll relate that directly to Los Angeles 28. Sloppy training will not deliver in 28. My focus will not deliver in 28 if it's not already doing it right now. The way I approach training is the way I approach competitions, and vice versa. So if I want to win at an Olympics, I have to put on that coat and wear it the whole time. In my training, my analysis, my view, my competitions, everything has to be done through the same pair of glasses if you want. And if you're not going to do that, then you need to stop deluding yourself about the fact that, in my case, 28 is going to be a possibility. That's what I need to be doing. So what is the standard I need to be training at, performing at, for the role that it demands? And then does your daily process produce that standard or only approach it? So it's lovely to have processes in place. If no one's going to follow them, or everyone signs up to something thinking it's, I don't know, we're going to deliver X, Y, and Z, it's going to be flashy, it's going to be this, that, and the other, but we actually don't take it as serious in how we deliver each step of it ourselves. We don't follow the process. I'd say there's no shortage of talent out there. I'd say there's a shortage in standards, and a standard that people actually hold themselves to. And I would say as well that if the standards became part of the project delivery, you'd have less projects actually not delivering on time and within budget. The outcome is already defined, by the way. It's already predefined. That's not a fatalism, if you want. But what I'd say is you need to accept that your process is strong enough for that or not. I mean, you cannot lie to yourself. I definitely won't be lying to myself about the outcome. If my performance is not good enough to deliver in Los Angeles, I don't deserve to be around it, you know. It's more than talk, it has to be executed. The process has to be executed in training so it can be executed in delivery. Think about this. My small margin. So we talk about, a game is won or lost by small margins. My paradigm for shooting, it's a full stop on a page 10 meters away from it, 60 times above 10.5. That's the standard I have to attain, and I have a process that I've built that delivers that every time. Looking forward, Los Angeles in 2028, the process is already running. The outcome is predefined, and it's being analyzed effectively the whole way, and the process is being improved as we go along to align with what we already want for Los Angeles in 28. Thank you.